Ladies and gentlemen, contrary to popular belief, we have not been sold to Endeavor. We are happily independent contractors. We call the shots. We are the dealers, as ACDC is fond of saying. We might get a cease and desist about that one, Katie.
There you go.
But welcome to the frivolity that is Wrestling with Egos. It's your source for the wrestling infotainment of the week. I am the intellectual savior of the wrestling masses, Brian. And this week I am joined by the funniest man in the room from across the pond, Katie Hinken. How are you, sir?
Wabba doing as always.
Wabba doing. You love to see it. And I'm joined by the big Don of Wrestling with Egos, the conscience, as it were, of Wrestling with Egos, Isaac Smith the fourth. What's good?
I'm good, y'all. I'm excited. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah. I like that.
As ever, however you are consuming our content, whether it's on our myriad platforms like Google, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or the YouTubes, we sincerely thank you for the interaction. We love the views we're getting. We love the hits and the downloads we're getting on all those platforms. Whatever platform you're on, leave us a 5-star review or its equivalent. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section. You can also email the show. It's wrestlingwithegos@gmail.com, and we do our best to reply to you. And I've seen a lot of chatter over the past several weeks about people still talking actually about the sale of WWE to the parent company of UFC. So now we have a super conglomerate combat entity, if you want to call it that, of Endeavor, which is UFC's parent company as well. And I'm happy that KD is back this week with us because I want to bring him into the conversation. And I'll start with you, KD, on this. Anywhere you want to go with, whether it's just your knee-jerk reaction to the sale, what positives you think could come out of it, what are the negatives you think could come out of it? You know, what does it do for both brands? Talk to me.
In all honesty, I don't really think it does much for UFC at all. Like, in negative or positive, I don't think you're going to see that much difference in UFC, apart from maybe a few more wrestlers popping up in the crowd like they do, but they already do that. In WWE, though, I think
Undertaker's done it before. Other people have done it before.
I mean, the only person I think we'll see, like talking about crossovers, for example, the only one I think that would go over and fight in UFC would maybe be Brock again, but he's getting a bit old now, though. I don't see any others because of obvious reasons. You know, when it comes to UFC, you can't just throw anyone in there to fight. You know, but the other way, sure, I can imagine a lot of UFC people coming over doing little things. You know, like Daniel Cormier did, for example, in Extreme Rules. Yeah, but I think in general, it's good and it's bad in a lot of ways, though, because if you look at like the creative side of it as well, I'm kind of worried now that they're gonna start, like Endeavor would want Vince McMahon being more in charge. That's the one thing that worries me, because for people that aren't interested and don't really know, only know from the outside point of view, they think Vince is the head honcho, the one that, and he was, but then he went senile, and now he isn't. Now
I think he still is. Maybe he thinks he isn't, but
he thinks he is, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he destroyed Christmas Boxing Day, but then SmackDown he wasn't there. The last Raw he wasn't, but nobody was. So it'd be interesting to see next week's Raw now if he's there. In regards to that,
I have a follow-up to that then, because it's funny you bring that up, because a lot of the fans of UFC that I know, one of whom happens to be in camera 2 up there, like it because it's legitimate fighting.
Need a partner.
It's
the hell with
actual combat, you know, fight sport. You know, there's wins and losses. There's, you know,
wins and losses actually do matter.
Rules and stuff like that. And I suppose in that regard, like, I don't know that you would want Vince in charge, because if Vince is in charge, then you know the end result that you're getting. and it's the
I
malarkey.
don't mean in charge of UFC.
No, I'm talking about you'd rather have Triple H in charge.
Yeah.
And his people, as opposed, and the creative that's working with him now, as opposed to Vince and bringing back, all the, the myriad people that used to work under him, and ripping up the scripts 5 minutes before we go on the air and railroad Seth Rollins and stuff like that.
But we're looking at it from a fan point of view. That's the problem. Like we, are smart fans, as they put it, like, this kind of stuff. Whereas somebody who doesn't know about any of that, completely imagine the slate being wiped clean, he might just look at it and be like, Vince McMahon, of course, it's Vince McMahon. Put him in charge of everything. He is intelligent as what to do. You know what I mean?
I guess I don't know. I mean, I personally have never been much of a UFC guy. I've never, I know of it, and I could name you people that have fought in it, and I know Ronda Rousey came from there, and I know Brock was been there and back and all that stuff, and guys like Chael Sonnen. And
to be fair, that's one thing. Sorry to cut you off there before I forget. That's one thing that I think will be good for UFC. The only crossover thing they'll do, if anything, is bring in like the promo classes over to the UFC, because I do watch the UFC and it's got a lot more character driven now. Like there's this one guy, Colby, for example, he was about to get fired, and then he was kept in basically once he started coming up with this kind of Ric Flair-esque character, being a dick to everyone. So I can see that going over more. But carry on, sorry.
No, and all you stopped me from doing was a litany of names, and Isaac was gonna be like, okay, we get it. You've heard of these people. Nobody cares. Isaac, jump in there with something, because you look like you want to.
The crossover is always possible with that. Since we're from the land, we're not going to sit here and not mention Stipe Miocic, the world heavyweight champion, at one time. And I don't know where he is at this point in time, but he was defending.
I think he's retired right now.
He might be
back to being a firefighter.
Family, but we want to put some respect on his name.
Yes,
so
of course.
Stipe, you out there? We see you guys. I think that they could do something, bring a lot of people into it, which would be great. But at the same time, I still have the problem of you have a nice clean break when you sold the company. Now, this is the time that you let Vince go, because right now Vince is bringing down the brand.
True.
And that's when, if it was anybody else, they would have been long gone.
There's actually one name I'm surprised that neither one of you have brought up yet, as far as somebody that could come over to WWE and do something. Because he'd come strutting down that ramp.
Yeah.
With that famous walk of his. I'm talking about Conor McGregor for the
MMA. Definitely. He'll definitely be there at some point.
But I've also seen people, and I can't remember any of the names, but there's some people who say I don't fake fight, I fight for real. When they were asked about, what's your take on this?
Yeah, but I think you're forgetting about Saudi money there.
You're forgetting about what?
Saudi money.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my hope is that the entities remain separate except for the occasional crossover. Because if you start diluting it with, WWE people showing up at the Octagon every week or every month, however often they have an event, it's not like WWE where there's a weekly show. I don't think.
Fair, at least they do a weekly show, the Fight Night, but it's sometimes it's not on. But at least one thing though, Shane McMahon will have a whole new pool of MMA fighters to beat up. That's good.
Shane needs to hang it up.
Yeah, I think that choice has been taken away from him now.
WrestleMania Night 2 was evidence of that, folks. And Shane, we hope you're healing and convalescing and everything like that. But man,
I don't.
It's time to.
When it comes to Shane McMahon, it was good to see him. But Shane, we all know that you still couldn't beat Vince. I mean, you tried to upstage Vince when he came down to the ring, ripped up both quads trying to get to the ring. Yes. And we all remember that train wreck. Even though we all thought it was funny as hell. But at the same time, um, this is the time where you need to seriously break from making sure that you completely break off from anything that's negative. And you brought up Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, when, you know, he came over to the US specifically and picked up that rail while people were in
Yeah.
the bus.
That was fucked
Forgot
up.
about that.
And
Yeah.
basically,
He's done
and
worse than that, though.
hurt a lot of people. That's when UFC should have been like, you know what, we're done with you. I understand you make me billions of dollars for what
Yeah.
you do, but that didn't just mess up one person. That put your whole brand, in the toilet. That's
Did you see him?
people some serious money because people couldn't bite the next day, and
Yeah.
that messed with their family because you have a problem with the person that eventually knocked you the fuck out. And he did.
I forgot
His
all
camp
about that. It
still
was what,
kept
4 years ago or something, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was,
Oh, yeah.
but you don't go after a man's religion, and you keep going there because you think that's what's going to set him off.
Mhm.
There's certain things you just don't mess with, and Conor went there, and the
Yeah.
problem was this wasn't WWE where they go backstage and they give each other a pound and say, "Hey, that was
Oh, yeah.
good. I really like what you did." We can look at the Dominic Rey Mysterio situation when Eddie did it. He got permission to do it, and he said, "Okay." They went along with it. This is not that. They ain't playing. They ain't going out for beers later. This
Right.
is serious.
He carried on after the fight.
There's one more part of this that I did not bring up last week.
You're part of the deal too?
What?
You're a part of the deal too?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
It's buried deep on page like 96 of the contract, but I am part of the talent package that's going to be.
We can't let them take
I
equity.
called it. One more time.
One more for the good guys. When I first read,
That's the right one.
I can't remember if it was the Wall Street Journal article about the sale and all of the particulars and stuff like that. There was one of the talking heads that was involved saying that he hopes there's going to be a synergy between both brands in terms of seeking all opportunities to grow their entertainment presence and things like that. And when you sift through the corporate speak, what that says to me is these UFC people apparently are allowed to pursue other avenues of income. They've got a contract, but then they've also got insert name of a revenue generating platform here. Like if you're monetized on YouTube, for example, because
they've got like third party allowances and that.
Right. OnlyFans, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to Wrestling with Egos After Dark, as it were. But what I read into that is apparently they're going to encourage. Now, I'm not going to go salacious on this, but they're going to encourage them to show up on TV shows and show up on, content creation online and stuff like that. And it's interesting how I can remember being vilified over and over and over again because of my fandom of a certain wrestler who helped blaze a trail on that sort of thing and is now one of probably the most bankable actor in Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken.
I say he was about half a year ago. I don't know about now, to be fair. Black Adam kind of didn't help.
That's going to have to be a sidebar for another time.
Okay.
I don't understand what happened there.
I saw the film, so believe me, I do understand.
Okay. Is it the content of the film or is it his?
It's just crap.
Okay.
I mean, big uploads, so.
I have no delusions of grandeur that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is Laurence Olivier. That's not what I'm talking about. But he has put out some awesome movies over the years.
Yeah, man.
You know, The Rundown was awesome. Skyscraper was awesome.
Walking Tall does not get the love it should.
What?
Walking Tall does not get the love that it should do.
I agree with you. I mean, Scorpion King was awesome. You know, has he put out some clunkers? Sure, he has. But he's box office. You know, everything he touches turns to gold now. So I would like to get some acknowledgement from everyone that I was kind of at the forefront of being a fan of a wrestler who went to make his mark in Hollywood, you know, and left the wrestling career behind.
I'm not going to apologize. I wasn't here for that. I would have agreed with you, sir, in general.
And Katie, that's why you and I have gotten along famously since you came aboard late last year. I mean, I knew I had to get the odds back in my favor somewhat because I'm quite frankly getting tired. I'm just tired of being tired. I'm tired of being ganged up on every week. And man alive, are the violins are they loud enough for you in your headphones? Should I tell the violin players to, like, you know?
Funny enough, I'm tired of getting ganged up on too, but enough about my OnlyFans account.
Oh well.
Gangbang.
What was that? Here, what? Like, okay.
What?
Let me jump in here, KD, because obviously this is somewhat subliminal.
I can't wait to hear this.
Who's wearing a white shirt that says Cleveland Cavaliers basketball? So apparently this is directed towards me. Let's sit here and go into it. Now, you know, are they going to be allowed to? I wasn't too thrilled with the fact that you know, we all know that the WWE and wrestling at times has been a jump start for a lot of people. Now, let's not sit here and look and say, well, it was a jump start for Hulk Hogan. Yes, it was a jump start for him. He jumped in the movies because he was so popular. Let's not sit here and talk about Jesse the Body Ventura, who became governor of Minnesota.
He became a porn star for about a few weeks. It's true.
And I know that Rock wasn't the first person to do it. I know Andre the Giant did it. You know, he was one of the very first ones to do it with The Princess Bride. Roddy Piper. You know,
one of the greatest movies of all time, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about that. But I will sit here and say that yes, but I had never had a problem with a wrestler going out and doing other things and other avenues and other venues. We can sit here and talk about Mercedes Moné right now, who's in the
Someone's got to.
Which, if you don't like it, I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, we can fight, but there's no point in me doing that because put some respect on that name. Now, we can sit here and go back and forth and everything else as to things that are online. And if that was the case and they didn't have, if this had been in place a couple months ago, Mandy Rose would still be here.
Yep, that was the name that I was going to bring.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put I thought that's where you were going, but I'm gonna sit here and say it. You know, Mandy Rose still would have been here. We would have, you know, the NXT division, the women's division, would be totally different right now.
And the other part of it too is, and this is something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, that there's a lot more ways now to make an income than the traditional. You go out and you get a college degree and you work a 9 to 5 and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, because the economy has diversified so much that people subscribe, you know, and maybe if that subscription is behind a paywall for whatever reason, the content is exclusive. You're in video game development like Xavier Woods is. You do OnlyFans because you have all these followers that want to consume the photos and consume the videos and your Instagram and your all this stuff. And that's one of the reasons that people like Ariana Grande are so popular, because a big part of what makes them popular is not just the music, it's the tweets and the views and the reels and all that kind of stuff.
You know what, though? In all honesty, I kind of just those examples you were going through then, I kind of understand the concept of them not being able to just go out and do the third party stuff and keep all the money, like 10% to WWE, because it sounds weird, but then think about Mandy Rose. You can't tell me that her OnlyFans is still doing as much now, like since she's been out of WWE for so long.
And
I
maybe
guarantee
that's
you
the
it's not.
argument, is that your platform is this because you're on TV every
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Walking
Like
around with the
you would,
belt and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
that
you would
drives
WWE.
people in.
Yeah, yeah, you're getting like that. What's the word?
Visual.
No, like the publicity, I suppose, constantly. You know.
Right.
Yeah, the exposure. That's what I was looking for. And without it,
I would argue that one for the simple fact that the people will follow you wherever that you go, and you did. It's not like Mandy Rose was a jobber and never got a title and was never seen on TV. She held that title for a minute. Now, if we stood here and said that Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, was about to go on OnlyFans, there'd be a huge following there too.
I'm just acknowledging my tribal chief. That's all I'm doing.
But like I'm saying, look,
He'll you know.
said, I mean, if Austin was doing something other than what he's doing and went on OnlyFans, there'd be a bunch of girls on there too. Let's just sit here and just be honest. If it's some lonely jobber that's out here doing the thing and it's not on TV, it's not going to be a big deal. Now, CM Punk did that. Oh my God, you lose your mind. If AJ, his wife did it, oh my God, you lose your mind. I mean, let's just keep it 1,000. You know, for those
the notoriety makes a difference. If if I'm trying to think of a person, like if Thea Hale, for example, the girl that's in Chase U on NXT, if she decided Chase U, if she decided she wanted to do something, I don't know that there will be an uproar about it. You know,
it's fun. I mean, that girl got talent. I mean, and she's cute. But look, like I said, if you sit there and you say stuff like this, you already know what's up.
So I was just having a look then to see if there was any stuff reporting on how much she's like made since, like, you know, Mandy Rose in like the last month, for example. But then I'm just ended up looking at photos of Mandy Rose. So I don't know what you guys were talking about. Just
it's, you know, we appreciate the fact, Katie, that you want to put that work in, you know, for the show, for the views.
Oh no, don't worry, I'm gonna put that after we finish on the show is when I'm really gonna put that work in.
Yeah, and we expect you next week to have the intro to the show ready, where you will have your PowerPoint presentation about what you found out.
Oh no.
This research.
No, I meant after we're finished, I'm going to continue looking at photos of Mandy Rose.
No, I know what you mean. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Ray Charles understands what you're putting down. You know, but what I'm saying is we want a report back next week.
Okay, yeah.
You know, or however long it takes you to get done with what you're doing.
It'll be hard, but I'll try.
That might take a little longer than what you really want to know. That's all I'm just saying. Hey B, you went there.
I'm trying really hard to come up with a segue and I can't. So we're gonna end it there, and we're gonna say, gang, if you have thoughts about the merger with UFC and the buyout of Endeavor, let us know. Like we said, drop us an email, wrestlingwithegos@gmail.com. You're on YouTube watching us, leave a comment down below. We love to hear your thoughts. And maybe
I've got one thing to say as well.
What was that, Katie?
I got one little thing to say as well.
Sure.
That, to be fair, it might be like with the stuff that Mandy Rose keeps doing, if she kind of opens it up a bit and she starts like bringing partners involved into OnlyFans, then I hope she thinks about protection, safety first. And talking about safety, Brian.
That was actually pretty shrewd.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure how we would get there, but really quick to finish that off, though. Maybe we don't see any changes. Maybe there's no noticeable changes in UFC and no noticeable changes in WWE.
Yeah.
Maybe the crossovers are slim and none, and Slim is out of town.
Hopefully there won't be anyway.
And we threw it up there last week that maybe the changes are behind the scenes, where you have merging of departments. Maybe you don't need 2 payroll people. Maybe you don't need all the IT people. But from what I saw today, everybody is retaining their own headquarters. I don't know where UFC headquarters is, but WWE is in the process of moving out of Titan Towers,
Yeah,
and into their new digs, like 4 miles away or something. It's still going to be in Stamford, but
that's true. Yeah,
they're getting out of that building.
they're not going to do all of that to then liquefy it to go into Endeavor. So yeah,
Right.
I still think they need to keep it separate though. Just a clear line as to this is this money goes to here.
yeah.
Blah blah blah, and just keep it so that things don't get tied up, and this money's coming in from this.
I will allow that I'm probably overthinking it. Thinking, oh my God, there's going to be wholesale changes, and not really.
I've just thought of something we forgot to talk about though. We're talking about just WWE and UFC doing crossover stuff. We completely forgot about Power Slap.
Oh hell no, we ain't worried about
Forgot about what?
Power Slap.
That's not on the air anymore.
Is
it not?
I saw commercials for it and I was repulsed.
I know what it is. B, just
that company now that was slapping each other as hard as they could in the head are now in charge of WWE. Just think about that.
If we were doing Power Slap, look.
That's a better segue for safety than the first one.
There you go. Yeah.
Look, I'm not watching it unless Ric Flair is involved, and Ric Flair's done past his time. If Rick was doing Power Slap, we'd be talking something different.
You say that, but then what if they announced Gunter?
Still not enough.
That would be for me.
No, Gunther's got more sense than to do anything like that. I remember seeing the commercials when because I think it debuted before Thanksgiving or something like that. That's when they dropped it, in the ether of television, where nobody's doing anything except Christmas variety shows and that sort of thing, and Frozen Part 7, Olaf cooks a turkey, that kind of thing.
I'd watch that.
And well, yeah, so would I. I mean, versus Power Slap. I mean, I'm going to go with Olaf all the time, but just I saw the snippets of people just rearing off and smacking each other up beside the head as hard as you possibly could.
It gave me PTSD from secondary school. I'm not going to lie.
Thought that was a good idea.
With Dana White?
Yeah, but given all the research that we now have, and this is a great segue, KD. So full credit to KD. We were doing the pre-show meeting like we always do. We were going round and round about this, that, the other. And he said, an idea just came to me recently, and it's something that we really haven't talked about on the show hardly ever from what I've seen, and I know since I've been here, he said, let's talk about the increased attention that's being paid to wrestler safety across the board. And I stopped what I was doing and I put my pen down and I'm like, actually, that's a really good idea.
I have them sometimes.
You have them more than sometimes, sir. And that's why we love having you here. But given all that we know now about the brain and about concussions and impact trauma and on and on and on, and I'm not going to try and invent more terminology out of thin air because I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't even pretend to play one on TV.
Ryan Danielitis.
Stupid listening to what you're saying. Like, we're all looking like,
but there's a whole school of thought now, given all the football players that are committing suicide because they have PTE and stuff like that, and the ones that die from it, and then they have their brain, researched, and the name that keeps coming into my head is Dave Duerson from the Chicago Bears, had a severe case of it.
And you look at the other side, not just suicide. You look at like Aaron Hernandez, I think his name was, who was in that team with Rob Gronkowski, whichever team that is.
He was a tight end for the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
But I can remember, and I remember when I got back into wrestling in the late 90s. The Attitude Era for me was kind of like the Wild West, where anything went. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaac had to know, and I think Katie, maybe to a lesser extent, had to know that I was going to bring this particular match up.
Yeah, I can guess.
It wasn't even a match, I don't think. It was a segment on Raw involving The Rock and The Nation and Ken Shamrock. And Ken Shamrock is kneeling in the middle of the ring, and The Rock has got a steel chair. And to this day, I have never seen a chair shot that made me hurt. Like, physically hurt myself as much as that one did. You probably thought I was going to bring up the Royal Rumble match, the I Quit match with Mick Foley, and that was egregious, and that was over the line, and they had, Mick still, regrets all of that, and I know The Rock does too. It was in Mick's book, one of Mick's books. Yeah. It was like 2 or 3 whole chapters on the fact that Rock was crossing the line there.
Yeah, Beyond the Mat as well. The documentary at the same time.
Ken Shamrock, that thing was right up under the chin, and Ken, was just on Chris Van Vliet not too long ago, and he had an interview about it. And he's like, I told The Rock, you better go for it. And The Rock's like, I don't want to hit you in the face. And Ken's like, hit me in the face.
What's the face?
I think it has to do with the mentality more than anything. In that time period, you're trying to legitimize yourself in the WWE world. Now, Ken Shamrock is the last person that needs to legitimize himself. But you're in front of this audience now, the sports entertainment aspect of it, and Ken's got to ingratiate himself, for lack of a better word, to these fans. So he's going to kneel there, and he took that chair shot, and it was high and it was tight, and I don't know that I could ever do that to somebody or have it done to me. I'd be like, if this is how we're doing business, I'm not doing business. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think you're trying to jump in there.
Okay, let me sort of piggyback on what you said. We sit here and we talk about you just talk about the NFL and football players and what their brains look like and what they specifically when they're done with football, in their wills they will donate their brains to science to see what their brains look like. I'm going to bring up the name of we should bring up a certain person named a certain wrestler who specifically killed his family. We all know who I'm talking about.
Stevie Richards.
So on and so forth. I'm going to fast forward past that. He should have donated his brain to science to see if there were any things that were unusual about it. And I'm going to mention another name. This person is still alive, and I say this about Mick Foley because, yes, the chair shots that he took against The Rock, and for the fact that he went off that Hell in a Cell match, let alone right there, and he said to himself,
multiple Hell in a Cell match.
And he said to himself, I still got to finish the match. No, you don't. And that I understand, you want to keep the illusion going and all the rest of other stuff, but I'm sorry. We're all going to sit here and say they're wired differently. I'm sorry, Mick. I love you. I always have. But that right there is what scared me to death.
I'm aware when Patrick and I got the chance to go see Mick Foley when he first started doing his stand-up comedy tour, he came to Cuyahoga Falls to the Funny Stop, is a little comedy club in Cuyahoga Falls, not too far from where we live. And I got to meet Mick before the show.
Oh, wow.
I got my DVD autographed. Got a picture taken with him. He could not look directly at my phone though. If you look at the picture, he's kind of off to one side because if he looks right at, then he gets headaches and stuff like that.
Oh, and the light and that.
Yes. So all of his pictures that he was taking with people, like the one that I took of Patrick and him, is on an angle. Same with me. I was in awe to be in his presence. I thanked him for all of the hard work that he put in. I said, thank you for entertaining me for all these years. And then I listened to him very eloquently on stage, And it's a testament to the fortitude that he has and the wherewithal that he has and still does have, that he was able to talk very eloquently and very introspectively, sorry, that's the correct word I'm looking for, about all of these moments. He acknowledged that some of the choices that he made in his career were not smart as far as long-term health. He goes, just look at how I walked out here tonight and, walked up on stage and all that kind of stuff. But that was at odds with, I have to have a career. And I'm not going to be like Sting. I'm not going to be like Ric Flair. I'm not going to be like Hulk Hogan. I'm not going to be like Triple H or The Rock or Edge or anybody else who's got a different body type than I do. This physical car crash mentality is how I have to differentiate myself and be marketable. And I feel like the person I want to give the most credit to for this shift, I think, is Christopher Nowinski.
Yeah, definitely.
Who was the Harvard football player turned professional wrestler that came out, I want to say 2004. Maybe he debuted or something, and he did not have that long of a career.
He did stuff with Regal, Regal, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, because of the head trauma that he sustained. He goes, I realized... What?
Because there was one particular move that happened to him, wasn't there? I can't think what it was now. Somebody landed on him on his head or something.
Yeah, I forget what the actual circumstances were, but he left the company, and once he got better, he turned around and he started doing research, and he's founded there's a foundation that he's the head of, or one of the heads of, that does research and symposiums and stuff like that on brain health and neurological functions and things like that. And I feel like that's the point where this all kind of turned on its head, where you stop seeing the gratuitous blood and the chair shots for the sake of chair shots, no unprotected shots to the head and all that kind of stuff. Isaac, get back in there.
Okay, let me just jump in here real quick. You just happened to mention Chris Nowinski, and actually he was on the Today Show literally yesterday. But what he was discussing was about the flooding that was happening in Florida. Just want to shout out that real quick because of everything that's happening. But we do want to make mention of it because they specifically did, I believe, his Snapchat. So that was kind of unusual that we just happened to bring him up. Now, we sit here and we talk about so many people that have, that some have passed on, some that are still in it, some people who have taken way too many kicks to the head, especially if you're, facing the Usos or Super Kick Party from, where all they do is sit there and kick you in the head and kick you in the head and kick you in the head. Things such as that nature.
Or if you're doing strong style. I mean, I shudder to think it. What somebody like Tanahashi, like the mileage he's put on.
Nakamura.
Yeah, Nakamura and all that. I mean, I just feel like there's generally there's a sense now where, at least with the major promotions, I don't know what the underground, like the Combat Zone Wrestling and the Nick Gages of the world and stuff like that. But in the major publicly traded companies, of which what WWE is, I don't know about AEW, but you don't see, except for certain examples. I mean, we can bring up Mox all we want and the shenanigans that he does all the time. But somebody gets hurt, the match stops. The referees are tuned into it. Like, you see them acting weird.
Oh, yeah. We know that AEW don't do that because of Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy and other ones things, to be fair.
Yeah, and I mean, AEW has a spotty track record with that. But WWE, we saw it, Patrick and I actually saw it happen live. One of the NXT shows that we got to go to, I forget who it was, and I'll have to, have him bring it up the next time he's on the show. They had to throw the X up. There was 3 minutes into the match, and somebody took a bad spill on the ring apron, and I think they went neck or head first on the ring apron, and the crowd just gasped because they knew. and the referee took one look and
Yeah.
throw the X up, wave it out, matches called off, and that kind of thing.
I mean, it even happened like in the Rumble recently. They had to not the Rumble, sorry, Mania. They had to stop the Hand in the Soul briefly, didn't they? While they were what were they injecting Finn and then stapling his head?
Yeah,
we can see her bring up Roxanne Perez a couple weeks ago, and where you saw that her body just collapsed after getting the crap kicked out of her.
Was that real though?
Match, but you could tell. Look, we all can sit here and say, you know what, that person just don't look right. And then,
I feel like it was KD only because I don't know very much about Roxanne Perez to begin with. I don't know if she's got a pre-existing condition that she's got to look out for or whatever. But what little I saw of it, it looked legit.
Are you on about when at the end of the match when they're in the middle of the ring?
Yes.
That looked like it was just part of another storyline when I saw that.
I don't know about that.
And you
I'll
could
have a look
right.
back. I don't know too much of NXT, so I might be wrong.
Yeah, you could be right for all I know. I mean, I just know that, Shawn Michaels did it in 94 or whatever it was, and that kind of thing.
And
but
he runs it. So.
Yeah, and that was all an angle and that kind of stuff. But
you can normally tell when you look at it. That's the thing, Annie. Like you said, I might have just only saw it briefly. So.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that sometimes you look at certain people, you look at certain wrestlers, and you want to say they took a beating, or they took the wrong shot. I'll give you a perfect example: Bret Hart from Goldberg, and the fact that he took that shot from the kick in the head, and that ended Bret Hart's career.
Mm-hmm.
And Bret's still mad about it, and has he?
Yeah,
because he should have had a couple more years left in him to, these.
It's a good.
Thing is, he's very mad at Goldberg, but he's not mad at himself, apparently. He doesn't blame himself for the fact that he wrestled over and over afterwards.
It's an important reminder, and I guess the whole crux of this line of thought is there's a very thin line between, wrestling as art and then wrestling as endangering yourself long term.
Yeah. That's, I think, part of what I was thinking of earlier as well, because they put so much into just protecting your head nowadays that I think they just forget about the rest of you. Like that Dante Martin thing that happened with Pentagon, I think it was, wasn't it? Where he did the Canadian Destroyer out the ring into the tables outside. There was just no thought about what was really going to happen, other than he overswung his legs, probably just so he wouldn't go crashing through with his head or something, and forgot about the rest of you.
Right, and it's, we get infatuated. Jeff Hardy came back to AEW this week, and I thought to myself, and people were losing their minds online about it, and I'm like, could we please? You have not. Matt and Jeff, in my opinion, I have much respect for them. They were one of my favorite tag teams when I got back into wrestling, and I went back and watched their start and everything like that. Those are two people who have nothing left to prove to anybody.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it for the income, there's other ways to make an income. You can be a producer backstage. You can accompany somebody to the ring and be a coach, or be, and maybe you have to swallow your pride and check your ego at the door, do something like that. But when I saw Jeff, and I'm like,
you were like,
he did one or two moves to All Ego Ethan Page and Lee Moriarty, and he was already winded, and he was already trying to get his bearings, and then hunched over in the corner, and he started clapping again and all that kind of stuff.
That could be adrenaline too, though, to be fair.
Yeah, and we just reached the point of diminishing returns, and it's like we need to be able to have the conversation about, do you think it's time that you hung it up? For real.
You know as well as I do that there are guys that are in the business that they consider this as a drug, because they get so enamored with the fact that you come out, it is like pumping drugs straight into your body when you get 10,000 people popping because you walked out. Perfect example, the guy that's behind you, The Rock. He comes into a building, oh my God. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes into the building. You know, oh my God. Nature Boy Ric Flair, he was still doing this about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we
can do it right now if we could.
We can, and if any one of y'all say that Ric Flair shouldn't have retired by now, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna slap every single one of y'all. I will stretch my hand out and slap KD across the pond if he says otherwise. But it's a drug for these guys. This is what these guys do, and they feel like they're missing something if they're not there, if they're not involved. But this is, you know, I use it as I use this as a Saturday Night Live skit. Back in the day, there was a skit where they had porn stars and they're working at McDonald's, and all of a sudden, you know, the music we play and they start doing their thing. He's like, "This is all I know." It's the same thing with wrestlers. It's all that they know. Marcus Bagwell said the same thing a couple of years ago. He said, "This is all I know how to do." You know, I love doing this. I love going down to the ring. I love getting the accolades. I love people sitting here and saying, I loved it when, you know, you did this or you did this. That gears them up. That's what they do.
To be fair with Jeff, though, I don't know if he really can say that too much, though, because trust me, from any kind of performance, you get that feeling, like it, you know, that kind of hazy and stuff afterwards. Even from tiny things, it is kind of like a drug, but he's got the music as well. You know what I mean? He's still got that.
Not enough.
Well, apparently not.
KD, do you ever get like that when you go, I don't know how often.
That's what I'm saying.
Gigs and stuff like that, but if you go like a month without the gig, do you kind of wish gee, I wish I was going out on stage tomorrow night or something like that?
Yeah, you don't get it even. You wouldn't even do a month, a week.
Okay.
That's not the same.
Just having not been in that kind of lifestyle, I don't know what that's like.
There's a rush with it, there really isn't any level, and I'd argue that probably it's the same kind of level of rush because I'm used to much smaller crowds, obviously, than someone that's used to much bigger. But they've had to get used to that gradually.
You feel it a little bit more like if you're playing. I don't know how big your pubs are and stuff that you do this stuff in, but if you've got a packed house of 150 people.
Well, you're not that nervous.
Feel their applause and feel their laughter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Once you've done a few bigger ones, and the smaller ones aren't so nerve-wracking. But that's always going to be the case, ain't it? Though, even for bigger people.
All I'm saying is that when these guys, and they can contribute to as a drug, and something that they got into because, you know, maybe they were a little too shy or whatever the case is. You know, they come through that curtain. Oh, they turn into a different person, and they're like, oh my God, they're here this person's come to see me. You know, things such as that nature. They, you know,
right.
They can get to that level. We all know that.
And this is why I have to give, and I can't believe I'm about to do this.
God.
This is why I continue to go back to somebody like MJF.
Oh.
MJF has figured out, he's kind of unlocked a secret. He said it before. He says, I wrestle 7 times a year. I'm not going out there every week on Dynamite and taking bumps. I save it because he can talk his way through a month.
He's got the perfect marketing.
Dynamite. He can come out and sing Pennies from Heaven like he did 2 weeks ago. That's brilliant.
He is the Andrew Tate of wrestling. That's why. His whole vibe, that's what it is.
He's not going to, as he's sitting here saying, I'm going to go to the WWE and I'm going to be the world champion and blah, blah, blah. This is my springboard. Look, if that was going to be the case, dude, then you're sitting here talking about you're not going to go out and wrestle every single night. Well, guess what? They're not going to look at you and say, you're not going to do this? Okay, then go home.
It doesn't mean he wouldn't, but maybe he just wants to protect his body until then.
They're not going to sit here and say, well, we're looking out for your best interests. You're an independent contractor. And that's what they're going to hang their hat on. So when you get injured, they don't have to pay you anything because you're an independent contractor. That's why they won't have unions. And we all know that. And that's in a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if MJF goes in and starts demanding, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, they're going to look at him and laugh at his ass.
Well, it's smart that he's at a place that's allowing him to have a schedule like that.
That's what I was going to get to. Like, is he not just thinking about his future safety?
As time goes on, the chances are less and less in my head that he leaves AEW. I feel like he's there to stay. He is one of the pillars of AEW, whether we like to admit it or not. But
Totally.
he's said it on countless interviews before. That it's better for him to do the kind of schedule that he has, where he's still making appearances, he's still showing up on Dynamite, but he's in his Burberry suit, with the Triple B, and
which is what you want to, though. You kind of want to hear him talking more than anything.
Yeah, I mean that's his promos are kind of cookie cutter when you boil it down to it, but then every so often, he uncorks something like he did 2 weeks ago when he was, getting the key to Oyster Bay, Long Island. I mean, and it's
love
just
that.
like, what are we doing here? But it's brilliant because he's not taking bumps. It's like Hulk Hogan said, why did I make my finisher a leg drop? Now I have like back problems and leg problems and all that kind of stuff.
Like, MJF could legitimately be thinking, okay, maybe I am going to go to WWE eventually. I don't know. So while I'm in a company now that is okay with me not wrestling, I'm going to save my body. I'm going to look after it.
And you have to give him props for that, for figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Gang, the bottom line is there's so many ways that you could take this debate. And it really isn't a debate when it comes down to it. Because
I think we all agree, to be fair.
Yeah, we want to continue to see our performers on television. We don't want them to get hurt. We don't want them to miss time. I know how frustrated I get when my people miss time. Guys like Samoa Joe and guys like Bayley and guys like Kevin Owens and guys like Randy Orton.
Finn Balor.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if I pay my hard-earned money and I'm going to a show and my favorite wrestler is not wrestling, I'm going to be pissed as hell because that's the one guy I went to see. Point example of a young lady, a sports fan, went to a basketball game. The Lakers were in town. And she specifically came to see LeBron James. LeBron James was injured and not dressed to be there. And she got out there and she was disappointed as all hell that LeBron James was not going to be there. Little did she know that she's on the floor, and little did she know, but the person that sat right next down to her was the LeBron James. Now, how ironic is that? Mind-blowing. Yeah. The fact being, you saw her face light up like Christmas is the same way we as wrestling fans, and this is why we love wrestling, go to the show to see The Rock, to see Stone Cold, to see, to see The One, and go crazy because they're here, they're in our city, they're performing. That's what we love. If they don't do that, you're going to be disappointed. I understand that this takes years off of your life. We talk about this because we know, look at Mick Foley. He honestly should be dead. As much as I love him, for what he's done, he should have died a couple times. But the fact being, we want to see him. We want to see him wrestle. And I understand this is for his body for later in the years. But right now, you're the champ. Show up. Do your job.
You know what, though? I'm not going to...
The reason the WWE beat WCW because Stone Cold was at every show on Monday night. Hulk Hogan was out for 5 months doing nothing, hanging out with Dennis Rodman.
Right.
Watching the NBA Finals. Now, that was crazy. The problem of it is you got everybody else working. And that was the thing. And that's why the WCW failed. You can put my word on that.
The one problem is, though, I do think that both stories you used then, as much as I loved them both, the first one especially, kind of went against what you were saying, because she was happy that LeBron James was just there, sitting down. It didn't matter he was playing basketball. She just wanted to see him, like MJF talking instead of wrestling.
But let me put it to you like this: if LeBron James came into town and you got the chance to see him ball, this is arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and he's in our era, and you get the chance to see him. Oh my God, you're gonna freak out and hoping that he's gonna go down and get a chance to do a dunk, to do a 360, whatever. One-handed jam that he got from JR back in the day, or whatever. And you see the brilliance that person is, just like you see the brilliance of a Chris Jericho, or the brilliance that you get to see of Hulk Hogan. I mean, another perfect example is when Hulk Hogan came back and he was in Cleveland, and they were doing it live on TV on SmackDown, and Hogan couldn't even get through his promo because many people were excited to see him, and the fact being that he was there and it was unannounced that he was going to show up, people lost their shit. And they were just like, oh my God, he's here right now. And this may be the last time I get a chance to do this. So I'm going to cheer like hell. And he couldn't get through his promo. And I mean, this went on for at least 5 to 7 minutes. And that was live.
Yeah.
And you could see him physically, emotionally getting like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
This is real right here.
That was nice as well.
And
it's an interesting debate to try and unpack.
Can I just ask as well, though? Because I think the worst person that's doing what we're saying as well is much more than MJF is Roman Reigns, because he's never fucking there. Like, I feel it a lot more towards him, never there, man.
I question the fact that Roman is. I mean, I question the fact that yes, he's got the greatest storyline in the world right now, and the fact being that he's also, you still have to worry about him and his health, and he can't do it at the same level that everyone else is doing. And my thing is,
it's not like he's in remission, so he's like pretty sweet now.
Right, but I still worry about the fact that it could go back, and at the same time, you're putting everybody else on hold.
Yeah,
with him holding up those titles.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the same thing I said about the Usos. I mean, you have a storyline. He's talking about we're giving you filet mignon. We're doing a storyline that's gonna last an entire year. You put an entire locker room on hold for a year storyline, and I'm sitting here busting my ass and not going anywhere and not getting the title belt. That kind of pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. The Sami Zayn storyline was great, but that took a year. If I'm
somebody
back there,
needs to do me a favor.
Tonight, I'm gonna be mad as hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, gang. Let's get Isaac a mineral water. Let's get him a moist towelette. Let's give him some turn down service, and let's woosah a little bit, because he brought the passion there. So many different ways you can take this debate. You can safely, as I said before, email the show at wrestlingwithegos@gmail.com. You can safely consume us on all these different podcast platforms like Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on the YouTubes. Leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Your interaction with the show makes us better.
Not me,
Katie, any final thoughts before we ease off into the sunset?
My headache's gone.
Wow. Okay, that's.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
I knew there was a reason you jumped onto the chat tonight.
Yeah, man, it worked.
Awesome.
You guys are on my drugs now.
Well, is it that, or is it the Mandy Rose tab you still have open on your computer? Don't lie.
That's true, actually. I am looking forward to that. It's going to be fun.
Isaac, the last word from you tonight.
Last thing I have to say is, I put out a lot of things tonight. I've said a lot of things. I hope that you guys realize the passion that I have for this.
Sure.
And hopefully that got relayed. I mean, look, I understand it, different sides of what it is and all that good stuff, but this is why we love wrestling. So that's all I gotta say.
Good one. That was a good one.
So for everyone associated with the show, for Patrick who's in absentia this week, we wish you a wonderful wrestling week. Thank you for joining us. And as the big man just got done saying, this is Wrestling with Egos. This is why we love professional wrestling.
Wabadoo.